I've got 3 or 4 excerpts from Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin. There may be some overlap, but it's crucial that you hear everything. Before I play, let me remind you of what we've been talking about on this channel. We're engaged in a digital battle, which is why Gary Gensler is pursuing Ripple, rather than merely a global conflict over world reserve currency statistics. The fact that this is a digital conflict is what makes it all so thrilling. Gary Gensler and Jay Clayton were sent for, I'm not sure by whom, maybe China. That is the hypothesis, but they were dispatched to halt everything, Ripple. Gary's responsibility is to hinder Ripple. However, Gary is a villain, as everyone is aware. I'll now demonstrate to you how. Well, everyone is criticizing him publicly in a moment, but take a look at this. We didn't intend for the United States to limit our ability to transact in US dollars. They made that decision. It seems finished to me. Stupidity, from the perspective of the U.S. government and taxpayers, harms the U.S. economy and weakens U.S. influence globally. Currently, 34% of our transactions are made in rubles and slightly more than 34% in yuan. Why did the U.S. do this? My only theory is self-conceit. They probably believed it would cause a complete collapse, but nothing did, and other nations, including those that produce oil, are considering and even taking payments for oil. Do you even know what's going on in yuan? And does anyone in the U.S. recognize what's going on? How are you spending your time? Do you cut yourself when you do this? Every expert says this queries every thoughtful and perceptive American about what a dollar represents to the you're murdering it with your own hands. That seems perfectly correct to me. And therein is the situation's irony. That we all live in is that the U.S. politicians are insane and are working against our own nation, but these men make sense. As a child, I found that to be unsettling because it appeared that these individuals were now the antagonists. Now that I'm older, it seems like an awakening. People, we have been misled. Utilizing the dollar as a means of one of the largest strategic errors made by the U.S. political leadership has been in its foreign policy approach. As everyone knows, the dollar is the foundation of U.S. power. Well, money gets spent quickly no matter how much is printed. The United States has very little inflation, roughly 3 to 3.4% across the world, which is, in my opinion, very fine for the U.S. But they won't precisely stop publishing. Experts state this queries every thoughtful and perceptive American about what a dollar represents to the you're murdering it with your own hands. That seems like that's a reasonable evaluation, in my opinion. The question is, though, what happens next, and is it possible to exchange one colonial power for another, less sympathetic and understanding colonial force? Are the BRICS, for instance, in danger of having their economy entirely controlled by the Chinese, which is detrimental to their sovereignty? Well, we have heard those stories about the boogeyman, so what are you worried of? We are neighbors with China. You cannot select your neighbors, just as you cannot choose your close family. This reminds me of a recent chat Brad Communications told me he had with David Schwartz, in which Schwartz stated something similar. But that's before it becomes a boogeyman story. But Brad requested if it could be a World Reserve bridge money when he arrived. Brad believed he had angered David Schwartz when the two of them left the room at Swell in Singapore in 2019. Brad and David Schwartz, he said, did I ask you anything? Is it a ridiculous query? Must I not? That they have, and David Schwartz remarks who else is going to be involved, China. Put differently, no one has faith in China as long as which other nations will believe that China, a communist nation, can run the world? Reserve should function as a global bridging asset. They might trust a neutral digital asset to act as the bridge, but they wouldn't. We have this situation now, so what are they building in the meantime whilst the CBCs are being constructed? On who's interacted with and collaborated with more than 50 central banks worldwide on CBC, and this is a widespread occurrence in the world today, with more than 100 foreign countries, representing more than 95% of the world's gross domestic product, exploring different kinds of digital currency issued by central banks or, according to a CBDC ABIS poll, there may be 15 retail CBD locations by 2030 for routine transactions, and 9 wholesale CBDCs utilized for simultaneous transactions amongst financial institutions. The use of stablecoins is still rising. The supply of stablecoins has increased from less than 3 billion 5 years ago to over 125 billion today. Stablecoins settled over 11 trillion in on-chain transactions in 2022, nearly surpassing the payment volume of Visas and reaching 14% of the volume settled by AC and 1% settled by Fedwire. Furthermore, whether or not a single nation uses central bank digital currencies, decentralized digital networks of value like Bitcoin and Ethereum continue to increase in the notional value of processing power and distributed ownership. In the upcoming century, our fellow men and women will have to deal with crypto and CBC stable coins, so I want you to pay close attention to what he just said. This is my reason for being here in the next century, along with the reason I've become so obsessed with XRP and Ripple as a company. This is who we are, has nothing to do with green candles. This has nothing to do with whether or not the value of XRP has increased. I have been here since 2013, so there's nothing to be upset about. I would have done so if XRP's price hadn't changed, but I'm considering the wider picture. This is, in my opinion, a once-in-a-100-200 opportunity. In my opinion, that, after everything is over, I think that all of these obstacles, both legal and otherwise, that have stood in the way of achieving something that truly is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Next. The Federal Reserve used Britain as a once-in-a-100, 200, or 200-year rule. Naturally, it would take some time, there would be various political obstacles to overcome, and there would be the garagers. That's what you would naturally deal with given how large I've always seen the chance. So these ripples that were spoken, C is referring to the central bank here. Digital currency, such as the kind we use to keep track of your transactions and wallet. Not only do we know your customers, but we are also involved in that field. For example, we work with Ripple XRP on their CBDC platform, and we advise small nations that are not as developed as India. We are already involved in the CBC platform, offering advice on everything from paper submission to CBC and how to transition to it. Alright, so returning to CBC, like many of you are in your pilot application, and you may be utilizing this phrase, CBC, as a backup. Alright, I just wanted to let you know, clip. After which there came this fortune piece. After the contentious new launch, the SEC might be compelled to proclaim an Ethereum of security. You remember this from the launch of Prometheum, right? In essence, the SEC has acknowledged that this isn't a security. However, the Prometheum people stated that this would be the first digital asset security available on their platform, which is undoubtedly quite intriguing. Now that this person has gone on, Gary Gensler is obsessed with this. I'm not prepared with a clip or anything. He continued to, think about cryptocurrency, though, completely downplaying his ties. I'm going to call BS on that, CCP, because I saw him when he wasn't in the spotlight, and I recall what he said. This is the footage below. It shows the Boring Sleuths Truth Labs and Smoking Gun. He says 2N at 110. Tell me, there's no rush for Prometheum to sell you there. Why is Gary Gensler granting access to this company for Wang Zhang Deep CCP title crypto? I want to present this to our markets right now. People, pay attention to this. He starts talking about 110 seconds into the video, and I told you that this is what this was when I released the clip, and they understood it. However, if you pay attention to what this guy says, you'll find out, because if this is the CCP's backdoor, he's essentially saying it is true. Here, you will know because we will witness it, so regardless of what he says, you will witness it firsthand. Moment he states that they will act strangely because, as he puts it, qualified is effectively the SEC's tacit acceptance of the offering. Once the SEC grants its qualification, the token is released for trading and becomes accessible to all investors, which is crucial for the growth of this economy. How will Prometheum be added to the list? Where are we heading? Corporations on its ATS, to acquire businesses. This is it, exactly this way, people. And you'll be able to tell by their actions rather than words, since they pay attention to what the problem is, or the pipeline will be. It appears to be a CCP backdoor based on his description. Hey, an alternative trading system, or ATS, is the same as an exchange. To list products on your platform, you need to have a product, which is the second step in our issuer pipeline. Oh, and there we have it, entities connected to Wang Zhang. Permethalum's lead investor and technical co-founder is Wang Zhang Shanghai Blockchain, arguably the biggest and most capable blockchain company globally. They have invested in numerous network companies that they plan to list on the Promethean platform. They plan to conduct an issuance and subsequently list you on our secondary market. What's great about this company is that their projects are of the highest caliber, pipeline, hence what you're actually seeking. This is Gary Gensler giving CCP corporations access to a backdoor, so pay heed to what I'm about to mention. To the tweet from Stuart Aldera, he refers to Gary Gensler, who is politically poisonous, a courtroom loser, and his staff has been exposed, and he asks who else would hire him. His agency's Twitter account, where he was lying to judges, was hacked in an extremely embarrassing fashion, and his MIT sponsor, due to my intimate ties to Epstein, I resigned. Now, people, if you miss anything, I'll tell you. Alright, I won't say anything beyond that. In addition, I'll show you what's to come. Share. Those two things could be the game to flip the tide against Gary Gensler, which is coming up soon. We will discuss that. While I am an investor in digital assets, I am not a financial advisor. This is purely for your amusement. I sincerely appreciate you watching the video.